Doug Wiley with Police Magazine. I'm here with a very dear friend, Brian Willis. We're here at ILEETA 2019 in St. Louis, Missouri. Pleasure to see you again, my friend.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Looking forward to the Emerson Hour in a couple of hours from now. Several years ago at ILEETA, and I don't remember precisely what year it was, I attended a seminar of yours, and it literally changed my life. In it, you described the world's most powerful question, what's important now? You admitted at that time and freely that you didn't make up the question.
No.
That's from Lou Holtz, and
Yes.
it's changed my life in the way that I use the question all the time. Describe to me how you infuse this into law enforcement training and what it means for officers.
Well, about 16 or 17 years ago, I was reading a book called Winning Every Day, written by Lou Holtz, and about the same time I was watching a couple of videos of Lou Holtz talking about life lessons and leadership lessons. And in the book, he talked about that question, what's important now? And in the videos, he talked about that question, what's important now? And it was a philosophy that he sought to instill in the young men that played football for him at Notre Dame and the other colleges and universities he coached. And he wanted to give them a tool to help them to make better decisions. And it struck me as I read that and watched those videos that this was a key for us. That it's easy to remember, it's easy to use. We use the WIN acronym, W-I-N, for what's important now. And as you said, I refer to it as life's most powerful question. I believe it's life's most powerful question for two reasons. Number one, it's simplicity. Now, we need to understand that simple doesn't mean easy. Simple is the lack of complexity, easy is the lack of effort. When we focus on what's important now, it simplifies things, but it requires us to do the work, to do what's important now. But the other side of it is the diversity in application. So I talk about it from a law enforcement perspective. It's being applied in every element of law enforcement that you can think of. Leadership, tactical communications, tactical combat casualty care, SWAT training, leadership training, any element that we can think of. It's being taught in recruit academies as a decision-making tool. But it's a life tool. I've had people that have used it in their battles against cancer. I have people that used it to deal with the loss of a loved one, the unexpected death of a friend or a family member. People, teachers that are teaching it to kids in the classroom, youth sports coaches that are teaching it to those kids. The power of the question is that when we ask ourselves that question, and it might be as simple as my alarm goes off in the morning, and if I just think what's important now is I get up and I go work out rather than hit the snooze button. If I consider what's important now when I make decisions all day long, because we make decisions all day long. We make decisions about how we treat people at home, how we treat people in the workplace. We make decisions about what we're going to eat. We make decisions about whether we're going to work out or not. We make decisions about whether we're going to read or engage in personal growth activities. We make decisions about, are we going to be engaged? So what's important now when I'm at work is I'm focused at work and I'm focused on whoever I'm dealing with at work. But when I'm home, when I'm with my spouse or when I'm with my children, what's important now is I set work aside and I focus on them. I'm not a believer in work-life balance. I don't think it exists because you can't spend 40 or 50 hours at work and 50 hours with your spouse and 50 hours with each of your kids. It's about focus. And if I ask myself what's important now is I put my phone in a drawer or leave it somewhere else and engage with that person, with my child or my spouse. What's important now is that we can use this as a simple tool to make decisions all day. Now, the interesting thing is some people would assume that, well, what's important now is about instant gratification, but our mind has the ability to process information at tremendous speeds and project the ramifications of this decision. And I make good decisions. And sometimes it's at the end of that shift and my buddies at work say, well, let's go for a beer. And I reflect on it and I say, you know what, no. What's important now is we've been working afternoon shift all week. I need to go home and spend time with my spouse, or I need to go home and spend time with my family. So it's a simple question that we can use all day, every day. Ask ourselves this question 30, 40, 50 times every day to help us make better decisions. When we start to find ways to apply the question, then we start to understand the power of it, and it helps us to make better decisions all day, every day.
One of the ways in which I find it to be particularly powerful is in the fact that it is one of the 5 tenets of Below 100. Below 100, of course, is to watch your speed, to wear your vest, to wear your seatbelt. But the 4th is what's important now, and of course the 5th is complacency kills. For me, what's important now is kind of the underpinning for the other four.
Yes.
You know, if you make the decision that I'm going to be, you know, kind of tactically aware, I'm going to be situationally aware. If you make the decision I'm going to watch my speed, I can't help you if I can't get to you. And if I speed too much, if I get there, you know, if in the course of getting there I get into a collision, so I make the decision. What's important now is that I watch my speed and get to the call.
Right.
And then once you get to the call, what's important now is to address the problem. What's important when you get up in the morning is make sure you wear your vest. What's important now when you go out on the street and you're directing traffic at a traffic collision, you got to wear that reflective vest. You know, forget that ego garbage that you look like a school guard crossing guard. It's important that you go home to your spouse, your family at night. So what's important now is to make sure that at dusk you're highly visible to passing drivers.
Right.
You know, and then of course wearing your seatbelt. We see so many officers who are ejected from their vehicle,
yes,
would have survived probably. You know, the examiner goes, yeah, it was a survivable crash, except they were shot 50 feet from their vehicle.
Right.
So to me, when you apply and you start really thinking about how the question of what's important now plugs in, and I'm a civilian. I was never a sworn police officer, but I have told you on a number of occasions, I use that question daily.
Right.
So I want to thank you so much for the question.
Well, thank you. And it's my privilege. And that's why, and I agree with 100% with that with Blow and Hutter, and I've had the privilege of being involved in the program since the outset. So that's why many of us, when we teach Blow and Hutter, we talk about the 5 tenets in basic terms, but then we talk about what's important now, because it's the one tenet that weaves through everything else. And it's that one tenet that what's important now, as you say, is put your seatbelt on. What's important now is breathe. What's important now is slow down. What's important now is communicate. What's important now is have that courageous conversation with my brother or sister officer who's struggling. What's important now is to wear my body armor. What's important now is to maintain a high level of proficiency with my skills and tactics. What's important now is to understand that wellness is an officer safety issue. That what's killing us is the suicides, the heart attacks. When we look at the fact that 10 to 15% of line of duty deaths over the last 3 or 4 years are heart attack deaths, according to Jonathan Scheinberger, who's a cardiologist and a reserve officer in Cedar Park, Texas, he says if we were to track heart attacks over a 24-hour period, it would probably be the single leading killer of law enforcement, because we have no idea how many officers are dying off duty. So when we start asking this question, what's important now, it weaves into every part of our life, and it gets us to focus on those things that are truly important. Set aside the trivial, set aside the mundane, focus on what's important, and then take action on what's truly important.
Yeah. It's an amazingly powerful question. I want to thank you again for it, and thank you for taking some time to talk about it today.
Truly my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Doug Weiland, Police Magazine.